worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. Big King Sadiq hollering at you one more again. All right. We're going to try and finish up this mini-series. Thank you so much for your patience, folks. Again, please like, share, subscribe. I love you all, and I appreciate you for helping to continue to spread the worldwide movement. Peace, love, respect. All right. And yeah, we're going to try to wrap this up as for some strange reason, I am continuing to experience more and more technical difficulties. Wonder if it could possibly have something to do with these 5G towers I've been walking around. Oh, I don't know. So anyway, you know, we talked about how social engineering is used as one of the major ways that individuals are compromised, right? Or groups of individuals are compromised, or segments of our society. And one of the huge tools of social engineering is indoctrination, right? And the many ways that a fear society is kept going in this country, right? They target our elderly in some very easy to notice ways if you are looking and being aware, right? The constant bombardment of morbid facts, right? Or morbid data, should I say, because we don't know necessarily the validity of any of it in terms of these numbers. We've in fact already uncovered some very underhanded ways that the mortality rate, you know, the number of individuals who have been declared victims of this pandemic are in question. We'll leave it at that, right? But at any rate, we know that, you know, our older generations, listen, my mother's generation and those before hers, and you know, my father's generation and before his, and is the case for many of us, those folks grew up on trusting the news as a valid, important source of information. In fact, they grew up being taught that if you don't look at the news, you know, 2-3 times a day, you're simply not an informed person, right? The daily newspaper was almost like a must, right? So, you know, for them to have to digest that indoctrination in print, on TV, and various other ways that they are given their news, right? It's very commonplace. So I guess it only made sense for the socioeconomic elite to make sure that they kept full control of the multimedia, and all of your news, folks, is controlled or ran through 6 corporations, right? The news that you get is scripted. These folks are literally all handed a script. And if you had a television that had, let's say, 30 different news channels all playing at once in little boxes on that TV, you would see, in fact, what I'm saying, that the news is all scripted. And it's all put out to continue the propagation of the fear society, right? So easy to mix in messages of doom and gloom when you have the attention of a whole aspect of a population, a whole segment of a population. The older and oft considered to be wiser segment of the generation, which unfortunately has been duped, right? And it's no fault of theirs. These plans to implement this indoctrination have been, literally in the making for centuries. They've known they were going to do this or something akin to this for a long, long, long time. And the more you do free-thinking, independent research, you uncover that. You really do. Again, a reminder, don't take my word for any of it. Look this stuff up yourself. Do the free-thinking, independent research yourself to know one way or another if what I'm saying is valid or not valid, right? So that's another way they do it, through social engineering. And another group that is heavily targeted are our youth, right? I already spoke on the previous videos about how the music industry has become incredibly dark, has always had a dark element to it, right? With some musicians, quote unquote, selling their soul, right? But now it's become a well-organized, well-normalized practice for these folks literally to sell their souls for material possessions and gain, right? For fortune and fame. So, unfortunately, you're looking at a whole new way that these folks are being compromised. So, the youth are being targeted through the music, right? Particularly what is termed to be hip-hop these days. It's not hip-hop at all. If anything, it's the rap industry that transformed the beautiful art form that hip-hop was into what you hear on the radio these days, which is dominated by violence, sex, murder, and greed for material possessions, right? Greed for money and just blatant materialism. Well, when you have a community that's actually starved of those things and a community that is not protected against the nefarious elements of those things, then unfortunately you have youth who are opened up to such forms of social engineering and indoctrination, right? We talked about how the executives who run the major rap or hip-hop labels almost all have heavily invested in the private penitentiary system. Not a coincidence, folks. You have music that's essentially designed to steer the youth right to the penitentiaries that the business end makers of the music have heavily invested in and are popping up and putting up all over the country, right? They're turning their artists into Pied Pipers to send your children into captivity. Okay? This is the reality of what we're dealing with. Even if some of those artists don't realize it, if that's the content of their music, that's what they're contributing to, right? And many of them realize it and want to do better, more high vibrational frequency music. Many of them do. Many of them have good hearts and want to put out better and again, more high vibrational frequency music. But that's not what the label's after, right? So that's another way. That's how they target our youth and many other forms of multimedia, folks. The social media platforms. Think about the fact that there are folks out there right now who make a living as a social media influencer. You could even, to some degree, include me in that boat, even though, as of yet, Big King is not able to make a living doing what I do. I do this because I need to get the truth to the people. But there are folks who are actively participating in pushing a very low vibrational frequency agenda and influencing, right? Influencing our